This podcast is brought to you by the JohnHarder.com, the official home of the Hardway Podcast, each and every Wednesday morning. Also, you can check out the Blog of Professionalism, which is updated daily, as well as the Catching Up with Caden web show starring Chris Caden, as well the home of the Marking Out webcomic. Check out the official domain of Jon Harder at thejohnharder.com. Again, thejohnharder.com. Yeah! Welcome, everyone, to the 34th edition of the Hardway Podcast here on the JohnHarder.com, as we're being led into with the Hardway Podcast theme made by Adrian Arca, as you heard last week on the Hardway Podcast. I want to let everyone know this podcast also is being archived at thehardway.podomatic.com and able to be downloaded through iTunes. All you have to go and do is go to the iTunes store, type in the Hardway in the upper right-hand search bar, press enter, stroll on down to podcasts, find either the Podomatic logo or this beautiful mug. Regardless of that, click subscribe, and you're able to get the Hardway Podcast each and every Wednesday morning to your computer or mobile device, and is dedicated to the men and women of independent wrestling who want to apply their trade to make their dreams come true. I'm Jon Harder. And for those that don't know who I am the voice of professionalism, a commentator, a play-by-play man, if you will. I'm also a columnist for snapmare.com and my blog of professionalism located on thejohnharder.com. And last but not least, I am a manager of the Professional Revolution, Leon St. Giovanni, the Juice, JT Dunn, Plan B, Mark Sherman, and Stan the Man Styles. We are the Professional Revolution. We're looking to take over wrestling and make it professional one step at a time. We're bringing it back, baby. And I'm Jon Harder, as I alluded to earlier, and alongside me, looking across from me here in the Hardway Podcast studios, good news, Tim Hughes. What's going on, Mr. Hughes?
Giving you the stink eye, John. Giving you the stink eye.
Well, you're giving stink
that blog of professionalism. You just did not get it with that.
For those that don't know what Tim Hughes is talking about, go to Make or Break on the blog of professionals. I put it up a couple days ago. Mr. Tim Hughes, I got to tell you, I told a story about you and Dan Barry, how you're trying to get back into Barry's good graces. Didn't you want to quit the business because of him?
No, that's not completely true. No, not true at all.
Well, regardless of that, I want you to run another blog for Look Ma No Fans, another professional website. They wonder why they have no fans. But regardless of that, go to the blog of professionalism. Look at the blog Make or Break. It was put up last week, and it exposes Tim Hughes. It exposes my professional revolution. Make or break for me, because if they don't make it past the next Beyond Wrestling show, whenever Denver decides to put it up, Denver has a possibility of making secret events and stuff. Next time we find out Beyond's having a show, I'm telling you, the Revolution does not win that night. They will be done forever. I will make sure that professionalism stops and Beyond. They don't deserve it.
Huh. Okay.
But anyways,
all right, you do that.
This is Alex Wright's podcast. Das Wunderkind from WCW is on the podcast this week.
Yes,
he is the artist formerly known as Berlin. He's a former Cruiserweight Television and one half of the tag team champions in WCW. So much going on. Tim, I got to ask you, we're not going to do any segments, no rants this week. We're going right into it. Get your plugs out now, because we're ending with the Alex Wright podcast.
All right. You can follow me on the Twitter.
The Twitter.
At Tim Hughes News.
So thetwitter.com or just twitter.com?
Just twitter.com.
All right, sweet.
Tim Hughes News.
Awesome.
And that's where you can get all my updates. And I'm doing a huge new project this weekend. This Sunday, I'm doing this underground tournament of the top eight most unknown wrestlers in this business.
And if you want unknown, Tim Hughes is unknown.
They consider me one of the best of the unknown wrestlers in this business, so the top 8. So
good grief. Well, what's the name of this tournament, Tim Hughes?
It's called Project On Point.
Really?
It's On Point Wrestling. You can follow them at On Point Wrestling without a G. On Point Wrestling on the Twitter.
On the Twitter, ladies.
On the Twitter.
Now, who's going to be in this tournament? Can you give me some names?
I'll be facing Max St. Giovanni in the first round.
LSG's little brother.
Yes, Leon's little brother.
MSG. I'm not talking about Madison Square Garden here.
Yeah.
I'm talking about MSG. He's bigger and better than that. He's going to school you 6 ways from Sunday.
I don't know about that,
I know about that.
But Leon St. Giovanni, your boy's also in this tournament. I'm gonna beat him.
Your best friend, Tim, right? Your best friend.
He is. He was.
He is. You're just jealous because you're not professional like us.
And Matt Tremont and Latin Dragon of CZW are going to be in this tournament, so it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, exactly. So many guys in this tournament, On Point Wrestling.
Yeah.
Find them on Twitter. I'm going to give out my plugs myself here. For more information on this podcast, go to thejonharder.com. Find me on Facebook, facebook.com/thejonharder. Twitter, @thejonharder. For feedback, concerns, advertising needs, hate mail, email me, john@thejonharder.com. And last but not least, for more information on this podcast, if you want to get the previous podcasts, go to thehardway.podomatic.com. That's where they're all archived. Also on thejonharder.com as well. So much going on to this podcast this week. Tim Hughes, we're going right into it. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for Das Wunderkind on the Hardway Podcast. Yeah! Good night, today, or whatever you celebrate in your culture, my friends. Alex Wright, here we go.
Three's the hard way.
All right, guys, at this time here on the Hardway Podcast, this is indeed an honor and a privilege to have Alex Wright from WCW fame. That's right, folks. Das Wunderkind is on the Hardway. Sir, what is going on?
Hey, how are you?
Doing fantastic.
Achtung, here is Alex Wright.
Oh, man. Alex, again, well, I thank you for coming on the air. Just indeed an honor for you coming on. 2 weeks ago you would have had you on, but my laptop crapped out, and thankfully I was able to get everything fixed and have you on. What is going on in Germany around 2 o'clock? It's around 2 o'clock,
yeah.
Correct?
Yeah, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, yes, that's correct.
Oh, man, so I'm telling you right now, it's a struggle. I barely made it out of bed at 8 o'clock for this. But, I was not going to miss this interview for the world. And we're going to be talking about a lot, maybe not too much, but we'll go into detail a lot about your career in America and actually around wrestling in general. First things first, people want to know, are you doing any wrestling right now?
Well, yes and no. I run my own wrestling school since 2007. I opened the wrestling school, the Wright stuff, here in Bavaria, Germany. And, of course, I train all my students personally, which means I have a lot of in-ring time. And so to say, I have a lot of training matches and stuff like that, and I'm in real good shape, what I have to be because of my my students. They are very eager to learn and very hungry to be as good as me. And so to say, I wrestle every weekend, but not on shows. So I get a lot of booking requests from the States and from Europe, but right now I have too much work with my wrestling school. And also in the year 2009, I started my own promotion, New European Championship Wrestling, which we are one of the promotions which are putting on shows on a regular basis every month, and that takes over a good of time and a lot of work. So I have really no time to take bookings.
Now, was that something you wanted to do when you broke into the business? You ultimately wanted to come back to Germany? Or was it just like it took a few years to do after leaving WCW and coming back to Germany? Was that something you've always wanted to do?
Well, not really. I mean, I would have stayed in the States because I really enjoyed living in the States. I like the country. I like the people there. I like the wrestling over there. I love wrestling. I'm a second-generation wrestler. I mean, I had my first match when I was 16 years old. With 18, I went to the States. And I really enjoyed wrestling over in the States. And like I said, the country also. And if WCW would have been not closed down or bought by WWF, I could be still in the States. But, I was one of the wrestlers who was almost 9 years straight with WCW. I had touring dates, 350 dates a year sometimes. Oof. Plenty of matches. My body was really burned out, and also I was mentally burned out from all the backstage bullshit and stuff like that. So I saw the closing down WCW as a sign for me to take a break, go back to my roots and go back to Germany, because I went to the States without my family. So I have my brother, my family. From my wife, the family is over here. I wanted to have kids, and it's better if grandma and grandpa is there. And like I said, I needed a break, and that's why I went back. And I fulfilled my first dream. That was to become a pro wrestler and step in the footsteps of my father. And the second dream was always to, help the sport to survive here in Europe and to help young talents over here and train them. Well, that's what I did. I opened a school, and then I realized there's so much interest in that sport that I said, well, I have to give them a place where they can, have matches and learn in a good environment. And I really enjoy working with young people and give them all my experiences, what I have from the sports all those years in the States and stuff like that. So, yeah, that's it.
Well, you definitely have been a world traveler, Alex, and you brought up something I wanted to get right into right away. Your father is a British wrestling legend, Steve Wright. I'm guessing, as I've obviously heard, that was my first question. How much of an influence was he on you getting in a squared circle for your first match at 16 years old?
Pardon me again?
Oh, I was just asking, how much of the influence was on your father getting you into the wrestling industry? Was it the fact that you loved wrestling ever since you were basically from?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Of course, it's better to have a dad in the business. It's always better if somebody knows you. Plus, my father, like you said, he's a legend. He's a very, very good wrestler. So the promoters probably thought that he trained me very well, and that's the reason why they gave me a much easier spot here at the show than somebody else probably. But I did all my life sports. I mean, I weightlifting. I did amateur wrestling many years. I have many titles in amateur wrestling. I did the swimming competitive style, and and I wrestled all my life. I mean, my father started training me when I was like 3 years old, and I knew all those guys like Finlay, Dave Taylor, Lance Storm, Benoit, all those guys. Vader. I grew up with them. At the promotion here at CWA, which was the biggest European promotion at the time. So the promoter knew me, and they knew my sports background, and, well, they said, okay, I get a chance. But, the pressure was very high on me because of the name Wright,
I can imagine.
The promoters expected a lot, and I had to live up to that.
Well, obviously, you definitely did live up to that hype. At 16, making your debut, that's definitely a young age. And one thing I did want to ask, a lot of people were wondering, asking, how old is Alex Wright got to be in sport? Like, no, he's still a fairly young guy. How does it feel doing knowing what you know now? And we're going to go into a lot of WCW stuff soon. How does it feel knowing now that you're still in your mid-30s? Like, you haven't really hit your prime yet, if you think about it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah. Well, if I would have the experience what I have now at the time when I was like 18 and 20, I would be a lot easier for me at that time probably. I would have done things different. I was at that time a very young hothead. Didn't really think that much, just reacted, and I would have played the game a little bit different. But yeah, that's life. You make your experience, and afterwards you can say which was good and which wasn't that good. But I just want to make sure that you know that I also have an uncle who wrestled many years also. I mean, I'm from one of the few wrestling families in Europe. And the dad of the trainer of my dad, he also was a wrestler and promoter, and he owned the wrestling school. He also trained the British Bulldogs. So yeah.
Well, your uncle was. I'm trying to think of Uncle. Oh crap! I literally was just reading about the Dynamite Kid. Ted Bentley was your uncle.
Bernard Wright.
Oh, okay.
Bernie Wright.
Oh,
Bernie Wright.
Okay. Okay, I just want to make sure.
So in our family, the wrestling runs in our blood, which was good because I loved it. As a kid, it was always that thing what I wanted to do. I mean, it was never actually that I, like other kids, they never know what they want to do and they have to decide, I'm going to be a fireman or policeman or whatever. I always knew I'm going to be a wrestler. There was never a decision. It just happened like that.
And that's exactly, That's absolutely true. Now, the one thing I was learning in my studies, reading up and you brushing up for this interview, I did not know you wrestled for, like, as a fan, I was probably about like 10, 11 at the time. I had no idea you wrestled for New Japan back in the mid-90s.
Yeah, I wrestled there. I was, I think, 20 years old, 21, for New Japan. I was in the Super J-Cup, I think 95, was it? Yeah, I was Benoit and Guerrero and Malenko and, Kanemoto, Otani, and all those guys.
Now, how was that experience? Now, how was the style different from Japan than the European style of wrestling? Like, what was the main difference? Was there any changes to your style you had to adapt to, especially wrestling in New Japan in the mid-90s, which was so hot for junior heavyweight wrestling?
Well, since my dad was on a regular base in New Japan, he wrestled many, many years for New Japan, and he told me a lot about it. And he told me, kid, when you ever go over there, fight back in the moment you step in the ring. You have to really show them what you're all about. And that's what I did. I mean, I went in the ring and I just kicked ass, and I really enjoyed it because I like the tough style. I like the sports, the old school style. I like the, hard sports. And since I did a lot of amateur wrestling and submission wrestling, which my dad told me, and, I like that style. There's less entertainment at that time, more sport, and that's similar to the European style. And so I enjoyed it really, really much.
I just love reading about the story. It all came to fruition back in '95, I believe, at WCW, and I'm jumping all over the place because I think I'm touching from topic to topic. I apologize. You wrestling Koji Kanemoto at WCW Starrcade back in '95. Now, how was that experience for you, especially in the States, wrestling a very feared junior heavyweight style wrestler on pay-per-view?
There's a funny story to it. I wrestled many times Kanemoto in Japan when I was over there, and he's a very feared opponent, and he really very stiff, and he really, he just eats up people. And I watched him many times, the matches before I had my first match against him, and I thought to myself, well, okay, you're not going to do that to me. And so, it was a really good, tough match, but it wasn't a match like he usually has with his opponents, and the office was really pissed at him for that. And Kanemoto was very mad, and he asked the office to train like, I don't know, 4 months or 5 months in a row, like every night, 30, 45-minute match to get in shape, because he knew he going to go against me at Starrcade. And I didn't know that at the time. Somebody else told me. But I tried always to fly to Germany on Christmas.
Yeah.
And when you're home at Christmas in Germany, you eat a lot of food, a lot of fat food, a lot of cookies and all that stuff. I didn't train for a week. I flew back for Starrcade and, jet lag, no training for a week, all that junk food. And then I saw the cards for the night, and I saw Kanemoto, and then somebody sticked me, hey, listen, that kid prepared a long time for that match. And I said, oh, shit. So I was very, it was a very hard match because, I didn't prepare that much for that. I used to be always in a good physical shape. Just on Christmas, I used to, turn it down a little bit, and then I had that match, but it still was okay. I remember. I really enjoyed it. I mean, like I said, I like that style. I have a lot of respect for Kanemoto, what he achieved, and he's a great wrestler. And I had fun. It was tough, but I had fun, I was blown up afterwards, but I had fun. That's the most important thing.
Absolutely. That's what a wrestling industry should be about. Definitely about fun, but, obviously, fun. Your phone definitely would have been tested as you started in WCW in about 1994. Especially at a young age, what got you signed by WCW?
Pardon me again?
No, I was asking, what got you signed by WCW, especially at a young age, like 17, 18 years old? What got you signed? How did you get discovered by Eric Bischoff and WCW?
Well, like I said, I started my professional career at the age of 16, which I was the youngest wrestler in Europe at the time and one of the youngest also in the world. So I got a lot of media attention here in Germany. And I was often invited to TV shows, radio stations, and all kind of stuff like that. And there was a big TV show here in Germany, and I was invited to that show for the topic wrestling. And they also invited Sting and Johnny B. Bad to that show. Mm-hmm. And with them, the public relation manager, Alan Sharp, was backstage. And after the show, they had a WCW tour in Germany at that time. They said, "Hey kid, why don't you show up at our show in Munich? We invite you, Mm-hmm. And I went there with my dad, and before we left to the building, my dad said, "Hey kids, you never know what's going to happen. Bring your wrestling gear." Well, I did, and I was very lucky to do that because at that night there was a wrestler injured, and they gave me a spot if I wanted to take the place of the injured wrestler, which I did, and they really enjoyed my match. And then they asked me to finish the trip with them, the last couple of days of the German tour. And of course I said yes. I traveled with them. I had my matches, and Ric Flair at the time, the booker, he was very excited about me. He flew Eric Bischoff in without me knowing, and both of them were looking at me at the last night of the tour. And after that, they came to me and said, "Hey kid, we like your style, we like you, and do you want to come to the States? We offer you a contract." So that's the thing. So, and I was very happy and thankful.
Especially, a young kid, young 18-year-old, getting signed by WCW, that's a big deal, especially in a major global company such as WCW. And,
yes, definitely. I mean, that's the chance in a lifetime. And, of course, I took the chance. But I had to decide in 1 week. So I decided to leave everything here and go to the States. And at the time, I didn't plan that I'm going to be many, many years over there. At the time, I thought maybe 1 year, or whatever. But, after 1 year, it went 2, 3, 4, 5, and more and more and more.
Well, definitely, that's a big deal, signing with WCW in 1994 and, starting off starting off your career, I believe your first big pay-per-view was at Starrcade. One of the things I noticed when I was doing research on you was on Wikipedia, and the thing it says is you are most known, this is true, I swear to God, you are one of the main things you are known for is defeating Triple H clean on pay-per-view. And at the time, that's honest to God what it says on Wikipedia as your main headline of who you are.
Well, that a lot of people ask, tell me that and stuff. But at the time, he wasn't Triple H. He was Jean-Paul Lévesque. We were both two WCW prospects. We were both young, and we were both trying to step up the ladder and try to have good matches. That's all what was it to. I mean, I had many matches against him on the road and on the Saturday night shows and stuff. One time, that's not the first time I won against him. I won many times against him, and he won many times against me. So it really, doesn't mean nothing. If I would beat him now, then it would be something,
Yeah. How was the experience working with him? Was it a good experience?
Yes, definitely. I mean, he's a very, very good guy, very nice guy, and great wrestler. Definitely. I had a lot of fun with him on that night.
That's good. You were undefeated for a little bit in WCW, and especially earlier on in your career, one of the questions that surrounds you, and it was talked about a lot on the internet and through wrestling sites, is your match with Paul Roma. And I have to ask you, a lot of people, a lot of stories and books here in America and whatnot said that Paul Roma made you look bad, and I want to get it out of you here if you feel like answering it or whatnot. How much of that is true and how much of that is BS with the Paul Roma story? Did he really try to go make you look bad, or was it blown way out of proportion?
Well, it's always how the office puts the plans to the wrestlers. How detailed they explain what they try to do with them, like what the plans are for them. And of course, Paul would have, you could have decided to make me look good. He didn't decide. He was, he was angry probably because, I mean, he's a great wrestler. I won't say anything about it, but yeah, he could have looked look better in the match. I mean, he really didn't work that well with me. At least not like the office expected him to do that, I mean, because the office had a lot of things planned with me, and I was 18 years old, I'm a second-generation wrestler. I always was told by my father I should respect the veterans and have good matches with the veterans and with everybody, and have a good match for the fans, and that's how I went in the match, and I think Paul was very pissed at WCW office, and they didn't explain to him the situation, and that's why that happened like that, I mean, if I would be in his spot, I wouldn't react it that way. I would be still enough professional to have a good match, do what the office wants, and then, talk to the office afterwards. But everybody is different. Everybody, the character is different. So, but it's a long time ago. It made me stronger, and it was an experience for me, and I learned a lot for the future in WCW, how to react in certain situations. That's all.
Absolutely. It's also about, age and, just all that stuff. And definitely, you get better with fine wine, you get better with age. And you kept going in WCW. And another match in particular that I remember growing up, I remember watching this on pay-per-view, and I remember this very specifically. I was 9. I remember watching you wrestle Arn Anderson on pay-per-view, and I actually really liked that match. How was the experience working with such an esteemed veteran as Arn Anderson?
Oh, great. I mean, like Arn Anderson and Ric Flair, there was so much fun to work with, and I learned so much with them. I mean, it was so easy. I never was nervous when I stepped with those guys in the ring. I mean, that was just a walk in the park. I mean, it's unbelievable. That's how wrestling should be. I mean, we're really fun, and I'm really thankful I had the chance to step in the ring with those guys.
But that was around like May '95, and then at that point, Alex, you started teaming and wrestling a guy that really became linked with throughout your entire WCW career. The man, the myth, the legend, Disco Inferno. I have to ask you, you really were linked to him throughout your entire career. How was it working with him through tag teaming and through one-on-one competition? How was it teaming with Disco Inferno?
How was it teaming with Disco Inferno?
Yeah.
Well, personally, I like Disco very, very much. He's a great guy, funny guy. He made me many, many times laugh. We traveled a lot on the road together. In the ring, very good worker, very entertaining. So I liked working against him. I did not like working as a tag. But it doesn't have to do anything with Disco. In general, I didn't like to work in tag matches because I preferred singles matches. And what I didn't like about our tag matches is, I'm a second-generation wrestler. I was told by my dad the old way, the old school style. I like more the sports style. And I wanted to bring the fans that they look past the dancing. And when they put us together, Disco and myself, then there was a lot of focus on the dancing, on the entertaining. Of course, it's very important that you're a great entertainer and a great wrestler, but first I want to bring the hardcore fans to look past the dancing, and I was very hard in the tag team, with Disco especially because he's such a great entertainer.
Now, the one question I was asked by a lot of fans when it came to interviewing you, and I got to get this out of the way now, and it involves, speaking of the dancing, it involves the legendary dance. I've seen a lot of people try to imitate it. They can't pull it off necessarily like you could have. Now, where did you learn that particular dance move with the arm going behind the head and back and forth?
Well, only one guy can dance like that, and that's me. So actually, the dance is, it was good on one hand, but it was bad on the other hand. Like I said before, the dance I really like in private. I liked listening to techno music. That's what's very big in Europe. I went to a lot of techno parties and stuff, and that's actually the dance where they dance there also. So in the States, I danced in the clubs and stuff like that, the same, and, the girls like it and everything, but apparently sometime a booker or somebody from the office, they saw me dancing in a club, and then they came to me and said, "Hey, Alex, why don't you do that for an entrance?" And at first I didn't like the idea. And then I started dancing, and they said, "Hey, keep dancing. And what happened was that the people recognized me much more, and I was they memorized me really quick. I mean, they knew me as the guy who's dancing even before they knew my name, So on that hand, it was very good for me because they knew me, the fans. Also, it was very entertaining. That's very important in the sport, But like I said, the hardcore fans, and the male fans from the ages, 25 to whatever, 35 or 40, they didn't like that, And so I was more for the girlies and the grandmas and, for that kind of spectators. And I wanted to have every spectator, and I wanted to show them that I can wrestle, and that they look past the dance. So that was very hard. But I think I got them through the years that I can have good wrestling matches and I can show some stuff,
Oh, you definitely did not rest on your laurels. You were definitely a fantastic in-ring competitor. But especially with WCW at the time, you hear the horror stories. You hear about, the backstage scene. And one thing is going out there and performing. It's another thing to deal with the backstage politics, as they say. I have to ask, especially around that time, around 1995 to when WCW started to pick up with the NWO really catching steam and, WCW becoming more of a global phenomenon, especially in America. How was the environment backstage, especially around that time when you debuted to probably around 97 when business was really good?
Well, 95, they started first with Nitro, and that was going about a year and a half, so I guess. And that was really good. I mean, everybody was up to beat, and more good wrestlers came into WCW, a lot of cruiserweights. I mean, I was there before Eddie and before Dean and before Jericho and before Benoit, and they all came after me. But I was very happy because they worked my style, or I worked their style, and I really enjoyed working with those guys. I was very happy, and the more guys like that came in, and I really, on my personal view, I really enjoyed working in WCW, and I was very thankful at that time, being there in the spot, having a chance to wrestle in front of big crowds, wrestling with legends, learning at my young age, and getting paid for it, So I was very thankful. Then when NWO started, it was a very smart idea, and it worked very well, and the fans really liked it. But of course, wrestlers that which weren't in the storyline in the NWO storyline, the focus was more on the NWO, so it wasn't that a good time for those wrestlers. That was still okay, as long as you get paid and you still have your spot and you can feed your family, that's all good. But then they brought so many guys in, and it was just too much. I mean, at one time we had like 250 wrestlers under contract. And that's just too much. If you just have a 3-hour Nitro show, there's about 30, 40 spots for wrestlers, and that's it, And then it was really bad. But the bad thing really happened when stuff changed, like the booking committee, and like when Vince Russo came in and stuff like that. Then it was really bad.
Oh, we'll definitely get into that a little later on. I'm going to talk about that, and but it's just 250. I didn't know. I heard it was over. I didn't know it was that many. I didn't know it was that 250 people under contract. Jesus, that's
many guys you never saw on TV.
Oh man.
Well, the thing is, WCW was on the right way. WCW was for about 1.5 years #1 in the States in the ratings. you know. So WCW was a great place to be, and was a really good company. And Eric Bischoff, I don't care what a lot of people say, he's a very, very smart businessman. You know, he brought WCW to that point, like I just said, and no company ever, how do you say, managed that again. You know, I mean, TNA never managed that right now, so
that's absolutely true.
It was a good place, you know.
That's absolutely.
You know, after a while, there were too many guys with a lot of backstage stroke and you know, say so, and I think Eric was overwhelmed with all those top guys, you know.
I can imagine, especially with all those egos, all those big names coming into play. I mean, I can only imagine how much you had to deal with trying to, you know, to separate stuff and how to get time for everybody. That's an unthankful job, especially for a guy like Eric Bischoff dealing with all those egos behind the scenes. I can only imagine.
That's true. Yeah, very hard. You have to make everybody happy.
Yeah, you know. But one thing we will talk about now is you started off your career in WCW as a babyface, and then over the next few years, you know, you started to slowly turn heel. Now, whose idea was the turn heel? Was it the creative team? Was it you, or was it like a hybrid of both?
No, I really wanted to turn heel. No, I mean, like I said before, the girls and the grandmas and the kids, they really liked me, but I was still German, you know. And of course, if I wrestle in the States against somebody from the States, you know, even if I'm a baby face, you know, it doesn't work. So then they changed me to an arrogant, evil Alex Wright, and after I, you know, talked to them, and it really worked good. I mean, I really had fun, and it really worked good. They put on my side Deborah McMichael, and yeah, I had a lot of fun doing that. I really like being a heel. It's much more fun.
You know, one of the big feuds you actually had as a heel was with Chris Jericho over the Cruiserweight Championship and whatnot. How was the experience working with Chris Jericho, and you know, how much did you guys bring out of each other within that rivalry, that little the feud you guys had on TV?
Oh, it was good with him working. Like I said before, when all those guys like Chris and Jericho and Eddie and Dean Malenko, those guys came in, you know, we all had similar styles, so we had, you know, we could have good matches together, and I respect Chris Jericho very much. I mean, he achieved a lot, and he lost the business like I did do, and it was fun working with him. The only time I really did not have fun working a match against him was at what was it called, Road Wild, Sturgis.
The motorcycle rally.
Yeah, that wasn't because of Chris. It was because it was so hot, and if you took a bump on that match, it burned your back. And so I didn't, you know, any place but not in Sturgis.
That was also the motorcycle rally, right? That was like with all the motorcycles and all that stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, the match was great, but yeah, the sun was burning down.
There's actually one story. Speaking of Chris Jericho, there's one story that was in his book Alliance Hill, his first autobiography, and it actually had a story about you. There's a story about you getting into a backstage fight with Hardbody Harrison, I believe. Now, do you remember that story and what exactly happened in that situation? Because Jericho discussed it very briefly, and I had to ask, you know, if you wouldn't mind talking about it. Is that true? And you know what led to that?
Well, actually, Chris really didn't see that much of that, what happened there. I mean, he came in when everything was done. It was just a problem before the match, and he thought just because he tough man contest winner or whatever, and like 15 years older than he could, you know, tell me what to do. And, well, I showed him what he could and what he couldn't. Yeah, afterwards he was bleeding, and I was, you know, I was okay.
Well, that definitely was in the book. I didn't know the full details. I had to ask you. That's one of the questions I actually, for some reason, really wanted to ask. There really wasn't a lot of detail, but just hearing that, knowing that you came out top, yeah, there's definitely an era of toughness about you. I'll tell you that much.
Well, you know, a lot of people always would try. You know, I'm a very relaxed and nice and respectful guy backstage. You know, and a lot of people think, you know, that's weakness or whatever. But if they want to try me, they can try me anytime. You know, and that's what happened there. I mean, you saw what's going to happen. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Now, we were talking about Jericho and Benoit and Dean Malenko and Eddie Guerrero. Around that time in WCW, definitely was a very rich, very, very strong cruiserweight division, you know, especially wrestling a lot of those talents, like some of the top talents in the world. How did it feel to be involved wrestling with such guys? And do you feel that the cruiserweight division was truly overlooked in WCW?
Definitely, it was great. I mean, you know, I think what made WCW was a lot of the cruiserweight division. I mean, WCW had totally different fan base than WWF at that time, and the cruiserweight division was a big part of it. You know, I mean, the people switched into WCW because they wanted to see technical, high-flying matches. So it was very good, and it was a good time for me to learn. So. Very, very good time.
Now, actually, speaking of the Cruiserweight division, I have to ask this mainly. Do you feel as if, you know, because TNA has their X division, do you feel that TNA is missing the boat, not trying to do the same thing WCW did with the Cruiserweight division by not putting a lot of emphasis on it?
I didn't hear you that well.
Oh. I was asking, do you feel like TNA is missing the boat with the fact that they're not putting a lot of emphasis, like a lot of clout on their X division?
Yeah. Well, actually, 2 years ago, actually they did, right? But then they changed. They brought a lot of guys from the WWE again, and well, I really think they do the same mistake like WCW did at the end. You know, there's so much great young guys which would have good matches and which are the future of the sport, and TNA shouldn't forget about those guys. You know, I mean, I think they realize that, and a lot of old guys were good together with the young guys. But like last year, there was a moment where the focus on the young guys was not that much anymore, and that's not good.
It's 100% true.
You know, WCW did that mistake. You know, they had many great guys, and they never used them the right way.
I definitely agree with your point validly. Now, one of the things in WCW is that not only were you cruiserweight champion, you're also television champion. But you were wrestling Ultimo Dragon at that time also. That's one of the names I wanted to ask you. How did it feel wrestling a guy who's at his complete peak, not only in Japan but in the U.S. as well, in Ultimo Dragon? Well,
I just can tell you, it always was great when I stepped in the ring with such a wrestler. But you don't have to forget, I was all the time there, and I was before all those guys there. So I got used to wrestle that kind of guys, you know, and it became somewhere like not normal, but you know, you got used. You're used to having the pressure put on you, but you have good matches with those guys, and you have to go toe to toe with them, you know. And so from that point on, it was great working with them. I learned a lot in that match also, but I wasn't that. I was like in the mid-20s there, and it wasn't like I was 18 when I went over to the States. I was 18 years old, so every match with those guys, I was like, oh my god, and I was very, very nervous and stuff like that. But with the years, you gain experience, you're gonna gain confidence more, and you know what you're doing in the ring. So it was just a good match. I really enjoyed it working with them.
Now, you said you were around 20, 21 now. Now, especially with the fact that you started in WCW at 18, did you feel like since you were so young, do you feel like maybe you were more mature for your age, especially in WCW? Did you feel like that, you know, the more you wrestled, the more calm you felt, the more mature. Did you always feel like you were a mature competitor, especially coming over to the U.S. at 18, wrestling for a global company?
Of course, if you move to a different country at the age of 18, you mature very quickly, and you have to be very confident in yourself and in your abilities. And that, yeah, of course, over the years I gained even more confident, and you know, I knew what I'm able to do in the ring. And yeah, a lot of guys came to me backstage, you know, friends and colleagues, and they always said, "Man, I can't believe you're just 18. Oh, you're just 20 years old. Oh my God!" And you know, when I went to the States at the age of 18, the most, you know, guys backstage were, let's say, 30, mid 30.
Yeah.
You know, a few maybe, so 28. So I was really, really young, and yeah, then they all can't believe that I was so young.
Well, definitely it showed in the ring. You know, you definitely stepped up your game. You're one of the best talents in the world when it comes to junior heavyweight wrestling. But one angle that I wanted to talk about that I don't think that got a lot of airplay, that definitely deserved it, was the moniker of being the best European wrestler. And, you know, you were wrestling guys like Davey Boy Smith and going full circle, wrestling Finlay and whatnot. Now, how was the experience of wrestling the British, like old school British and European legends such as those guys? Like, especially since, you know, you said you knew them, you know, growing up with your father and stuff. How did that feel coming full circle wrestling against guys that your father wrestled?
Like I said before, when you grew up with those guys, it's not like for like a fan, you know. A fan is going, oh my God, you know. But I knew those guys, you know. I played with them. I watched every night the shows with them. I had my third match against Finlay in Germany, in Hanover. So I wrestled him many times before I wrestled him in the States. And Davey Boy, of course, he was a very big legend in the States. So that was something special also. But yeah, they're all the European style, and I enjoy working the European style. And every time I step in the ring, even I wrestled the guys before, I try to learn in every match, and I learned there, and it was good. It was fun, you know. Very sad that Davey had to leave so early, you know.
No,
very big loss for the sport.
Sorry about that. I had a cough a quick second. Now around this time, it's around 1998 when you're doing the best European wrestler wrestling Finlay and Davey Boy Smith, and noticeably you took some time off of television, and then vignettes started playing for Berlin. Now, what led to the character Berlin being started, and were you for it? Like, was it your idea? Was that the creative aspect to do something different with you?
Yeah, I think it was. I went to the office and said I want to change my look, because I didn't really enjoy being that pretty boy anymore and having the pretty boy look, you know, and I wanted to change very drastically. So I came up with that old-fashioned vampire gothic style gimmick, and you know, I had a, how do you say, hero? Is that called in the States again? The word for the hairstyle what I had? At Berlin.
Berlin.
What's it called?
Mohawk. I'm trying to.
Mohawk, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm sorry. I haven't that much practice lately talking English, so it's very hard.
Sorry.
Yeah, I changed my total look and everything, and the first time when I had my appearance at the WCW Nitro and I walked backstage, 99% of the guys didn't recognize me, and I had a lot of fun with that, playing with them. Getting all those looks, you know, tough looks, and who is this guy, you know, and that was fun, yeah.
No, definitely, especially with the black hair and the beard. It was just a totally different look. And you definitely look like a totally different person. Now, it was around May, I think it was May of 1999, where you were supposed to make your debut with that character, and then they held you back for a few months. Was there any reason why they held you back? Was there any particular story behind that? Or was it,
Yes, very, very, very sad reason was the Columbine shooting.
Yeah.
And they didn't want to put that character on TV because, you know, I in my entrance I was wearing that long black coat, you know.
Okay.
And they didn't want to show similarities with those guys who did that massacre, you know.
Yeah.
So they said, okay, we have to wait till it's a little bit, for, you know, time got past.
Now, with that, it's holding time back. You actually made your debut at Fall Brawl in September, and you know, what was it like? Because I was reading stories on it. You wrestling, supposed to wrestle Buff Bagwell, and then you wound up wrestling Hacksaw. And there was conflicting stories going around that Hacksaw really wasn't looking forward to wrestling you or whatnot. Now, how true is that? And was there anything going on? Did you feel like the character was stifled from the start?
Well, I tell you what, I should have saved the character for the WWE, because they would have probably knew how to, you know, what they should do with that character. At that point, it was a very hard time in WCW because there were a lot of changes backstage. You know, yeah. I mean, there was the time when Eric Bischoff had his last days, and Vince Russo was slowly coming in backstage. Nobody knew what spot they're gonna have. The wrestlers didn't know if they're still gonna have a job. The booking committee didn't know if they're gonna have a job and stuff like that. And everybody tried to, you know, save their own ass. And you know, if something happens in the ring, it's always the fault of the office. Because if the office doesn't exactly tell the guys what they want and explain to them, then something like that could happen anytime. Happened a lot of times, not only in my matches. It happened to Goldberg and to other guys. The office is the boss, and they have to tell you what they want, you know. And I guess they didn't tell Haxa and myself exactly what they want. That's all. You know, Haxa is a great guy. I really liked him, and Bagwell the same, you know. I mean, when I came over to the States, Bagwell helped me a lot, and I'm very thankful for helping me, you know, getting started with my life over there. I really can't say anything bad. It's just, like I said, everybody was looking for it for themselves, and it's just like that. It was right. Sadly, it was the wrong time to debut the character. That's all. Yeah. If it would have been in a different time, it was a good backstage office. You know, I mean, there was a good backstage office, but you didn't know what the future going to bring in the next few weeks. So it was very chaos backstage. You know, and that's the reason.
Well, you know, you brought up Vince Russo earlier on, and that's when WCW really started going downhill. Now, you talked about how Eric Bischoff was a great businessman ultimately, and how, you know, he definitely had a lot of pressure on him to live up with all the egos there. Now, how was the Vince Russo experience? Because you read a lot and you hear a lot. How was it working for Vince Russo?
Well, I wouldn't say I worked for Vince Russo. No, I worked for WCW, and I really enjoyed working for WCW. Even you had a lot of backstage politics, but you have backstage politics in regular jobs also, you know. And so, I mean, that's the reason why I always stayed with WCW and I was loyal to them, you know. And like I said, every guy who wrestled for WCW has to be thankful, because they traveled the world, they learned a lot there, they made a lot of good money, you know. I mean, they, you know, had a lot of chances, and you shouldn't talk bad about WCW. But Vince Russo is a different story. I mean, that guy, you know, he wasn't very... I don't think he was very respected by the wrestlers, and he wasn't very liked by the wrestlers. And in my opinion, he did the wrong booking for us, because he booked like for the WWE spectators, but we had a different fan base, and it didn't work what he was booking. You know, that's all.
Yeah. So basically, it was just like conflict of styles. You know, the WCW fans wanted more wrestling, and Vince Russo was giving him more of the WWF storyline and the Crash TV format.
Exactly. I guess he thought the booking which worked in WWF at the time, or now WWE, would work in WCW, and it didn't. That's all. I mean, if you book an actor to have our prestigious belt, the WCW World Heavyweight Championship belt, then that says it all. I mean, so many great wrestlers had that belt, and he gave it to David Arquette.
I have, I'm going to ask this question. What was the backstage reaction to the fact that not only David Arquette, but Vince Russo himself was WCW champion? Like, what was the backstage reaction just to see, the head creative decide to put the championship belt not only on an actor but himself as well? Like, what was your reaction on that?
Well, like I said, nobody really had respect for him, I guess, because of that. I mean, it's so hard to be a pro wrestler. You have to train many, many years very hard. You have a lot of pain. You have to bring a lot of love in the sport and duration in the sport, and it's really an impact sport on your body. And every guy who was in WCW worked very hard to be in that spot. And there's somebody who never really, at least he didn't look like he does any sports. Give himself the belt. Nah. No, that's wrong. That's wrong. It's like a slap in the face for every competitor,
I can only imagine what that's going, especially when everybody's looking, to become the number one man within the company, and then to see that happen. I definitely understand what you're going through. But one thing I do want to talk about also is, you were Berlin for a few months, and then back in around August of 2000, I was going to say 2010, 2000, you went back to being Alex Wright and teaming with Disco Inferno. Now, like you said WCW really didn't grasp the Berlin style, but then you came back with a bald head and sideburns. Now, was that your idea to come back as Alex Wright, or did the company just say?
No, I would have stayed Berlin, but there was a lot of problems with Vince Russo and the gimmick, and then I just changed it. I mean, they didn't know how to use that gimmick the right way. At first, when Eric still had it under his hands, then it was good. I mean, the debut and all that stuff, the fans were really hot on that gimmick, But once Vince Russo came in, he didn't want to take any ideas from Eric Bischoff, so he changed it,
Oh, so basically everything that was under the Bischoff regime, Russo just basically wanted to get rid of and just start things in his own vision.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. But around that time, right before WCW was bought by WWE, you actually did a tour back in Germany, and for about a couple days, you were WCW Tag Team Champion. How did it feel coming full circle, starting your career in Germany, and then going on a major German tour for WCW and winning and becoming a champion in front of your home nation? How did that feel?
Oh, it was great. I mean, it was really great because it was in one of the biggest arenas in Oberhausen. It was, I think, 12 or 15,000 people in it. And, that's a dream come true also, in front of your home crowd, becoming a champion. That was great. That was really great. That was a good night, But the thing at that night, I had how you say, in German it would be 41, what's the highest fever you can have? What's it?
I think about 104 to 107, 107 degrees.
I mean, I had really bad fever, I had so much pain in my body, and I couldn't move, and I couldn't do that, and I had 3 matches on a bed roll on that night. I was really catastrophic. But, show must go on. The fans didn't realize anything. That was still a great moment.
That's a testament to you, wrestling through an extremely high fever like that. That's a true testament. So, you get a lot of...
After that, I had how do you say it? The heart has a... when you work out and you have fever, you can get problems with your heart.
Heart palpitations. Heart, like
no, not heart, probably inflammation.
Ooh, Jesus.
Inflammation.
Yeah.
It took like a half a year till my heart was okay again. It was really shit.
Oh, trust me. As a person that has heart problems, I definitely know what you're talking about. I know exactly what you mean. Now, especially going through Germany, all through your WCW career, it came down to that. WWF wound up buying WCW, but now how close was it to Eric Bischoff actually buying the company? Now, was it official? Was it when Bischoff was looking to buy the company? How close was he? Do you know by any chance?
Well, there were rumors that it was very close, but they were just rumors. I really can't say anything to that because it's just rumors,
Well, now
at least I don't know anything else.
Okay. Now with WCW being bought by WWF, a lot of guys were being brought over to WWF with the contracts. However, one name I didn't notice was yours. Now, was there talk of you going to WWF? Was there any idea of your contract being transferred over? What was the situation with that? With you going to WWF?
Well,
where to go?
They couldn't transfer my contract because I was not under contract by WCW. My contract was directly with Time Warner, and there was just a few contracts, like about, I would say maybe 8 to 10 contracts, which were directly with Time Warner. Nash and PDP and guys like that had contracts with Time Warner, and I was one of them. And they couldn't buy me. Yeah. So I set out my contract because the offer what WWE gave us was not good enough. The buyout.
Yeah.
I didn't want to take them.
Yeah. Now, the one question I did want to ask is, now you bring up the Time Warner and the difference between Time Warner and WCW contract. How did certain I'm confused about how did certain competitors get the Time Warner contract while other guys were just strictly on a WCW contract? How did you get to that opportunity to get that contract, the Time Warner job?
Well, it's, I guess, how the importance of the players for the company.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I was there for a long time, and I was loyal to the company, and I worked with every guy. I was always reliable. They always could use me, for anything they wanted. I mean, I was always professional. I always did my job, and anytime they brought in new guys, I was the first guy to wrestle them. It doesn't matter if it was like Jericho, Sabu, or, all those guys. So I guess, plus I, with Germany, the German deal,
Yeah. Okay.
But you have to ask the office. I really can't say anything about that.
Now you talk about the WWF buyout wasn't good enough and whatnot, and that's why you didn't go to WWF at that time. Now, was there any talk ever of you possibly coming to WWE to wrestle there, or were you just never interested?
Yeah, there was a couple of times of talk. I had a couple phone calls. Just I was there, and like I said before, I was so many years with WCW. My body was so beaten, and I was so burned out mentally because of all the backstage politics. What happened at the end in WCW, and I'm a very myself. I have a lot of pride in what I'm doing, and I always want to give my best. I want to give my best in the ring, like I want to, for the promoter, and I want to give my best for the fans and for myself. And if I can't do that, if I can't give 100% or even 150%, I don't want to step in the ring. And I knew I couldn't perform at that level, which I wanted for myself and for the promoter and for the fans. So I said to WWE, thank you very much, but it's not the time right now.
Well, when basically if everything didn't happen out that way, you would have ultimately everything would have turned out the same, I think. Now you got your own company in Germany, and you have your own wrestling school, The Right Stuff, So, you definitely had a long, impactful career in wrestling. A lot of people definitely intrigued and interested in your career. So, I wanted to thank you very much for coming on to the Hardway Podcast. Now there's one question I actually did want to ask. Can you do a quick plug for me? Just say this is Alex Wright and you're on the Hardway Podcast.
I couldn't hear the last sentence
my bad.
you said.
Oh, I was just wondering if you can do a quick plug for me. Alex, this is Alex Wright and you're on the Hardway Podcast. Can you do a quick plug for me?
If you say your podcast again a little bit slower so I can understand it good.
The Hardway Podcast.
I can't hear it.
Oh, man, I apologize. Okay. The Hardway Podcast.
Hardway?
Yes, the Hardway.
Hardway Podcast.
Yes, sir.
Hardway. Okay, now I got it. Okay. Achtung, Achtung! Here is Alex Wright, and you're listening to the Hardway Podcast. And you have to listen good, because if you don't listen, I come to the States and kick your ass.
Alex, thank you very much, man. Now, one last thing I'm going to ask. Do you have anything you want to get
Thank you for having me. It was very fun talking to you, and thank you very much for all my loyal fans over there. And maybe you check out our site, www.new-wrestling.de. It's the new big company in Europe.
Oh, I definitely think a lot of people will be checking out that promotion. Alex, thank you very much for doing this podcast. It's indeed an honor, and I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to do this.
I thank you, John. You have a good day, or a good night now.
All right. Awesome. Thank you, folks. Thank you, Alex. Have a good day.
Thank you. You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.